Hi, welcome to The Nursing Dose with your host, Farah, aka Dr. Laurent, the nurse career coach. And today we have a very special guest, Dr. Nena Hart. And she is amazing, y'all. She has her own consulting company called Hart Healthcare Solutions. And she is recently the president and owner of the NNBA, the National Nurses and Business Association. Congrats on that. And then also
Thank you.
does consulting for, self-employed nurse. Is that what it is?
Yep.
Awesome. So if you want to say hello and introduce yourself to everybody out there.
Hi guys. If you don't know me, I'm Nena Hart, and I am, I guess, all that Farah said I am. So I have to claim it, right? I've
Yeah.
been working for myself for full time for about 4 years now, a little over 4 years, since I got fired from my dream job in Hawaii. We moved to Hawaii so that I could be the CEO of a hospice, and 5 weeks later, they fired me for no reason. So that's my story of how I launched my business. I wanted to work for myself for like 10 years. And I was just too afraid to do it because I was a director of nursing and long-term care and a director of operations in hospice. And I just couldn't let go of my job. I thought that that was the only way that I could really be the breadwinner and support my family. And so I learned through self-employment that I can do much more than that, and still help people and still make a positive impact in healthcare. So I'm super excited to be here. Thank you so much for having me today. I've been wanting to come on for a while.
I love it. I love it. And so, okay, so many things to, oh my goodness, talk about. So, number one, we met at the NNBA and when I went in 2023 and I got to speak. It was amazing.
Yes.
And you were there exhibiting and stuff. So we've been kind of connecting for a while. And then we saw each other recently in Nashville.
Yeah,
Which
Nurse Boss Summit.
Yes, at the Nurse Boss Summit, where I also spoke on personal branding and you were exhibiting. So super cool. All the things that you've been doing. But you mentioned something about how you've been wanting to do this for 10 years. And by the way, guys, say hello in the chat. Let us know where you're watching from. Let us know if you have any questions, comments, put them in there. And today I forgot to introduce the show, but hey, this is what it is. It's going to be nurse consulting, how to monetize your expertise. Right. So this is what we're talking about. But honestly, you talked about how you wanted to do this for 10 years, but you were pursuing, the ladder, right? Wanted to get into corporate and climb the ladder. But how quickly, right? How quickly we figure out that these organizations are not really loyal. And this hits home for me too, because, you move your whole family over to Hawaii expecting, to be there and like job security. But guess what, y'all? There's no thing as job security. And I was listening to this podcast today, and I'm a woman of faith. I believe in God, but I think it's God pushing us towards our purpose because we're too afraid to do it. So if you want to talk a little bit about that, like, so many people, it's almost like they fall into entrepreneurship, right? It's like you're pushed to it. So if you want to kind of talk about that and how you felt at that time.
Yeah, I mean, for me, you're 100% on point. I would never have given that job up. So in the first 5 weeks, I already hated it, knew it was a terrible fit.
Oh,
Oh
really?
yeah, it was miserable. They were not very nice. They were super manipulative and wouldn't tell me anything and kept things from me on purpose so that I couldn't do a good job. And I just thought, well, it's going to take some time. This is totally a different thing. And so, maybe this is just their organization really needs some help with the culture and I can work on that. And I would have never given that job up had they not fired me. Like God had to take that from me, like really to make me understand like this is not it for you. Cause I had this performance mindset that if I just worked harder, I would I would
Mm-hmm.
be successful. And that's really what I believed that is really how I based my whole identity. Not like just as like a nurse, like as a person. Like I would put my job at the top of my priorities. I almost lost my marriage over this at one point that I put my job above everything else in my life and made my job so important because I just knew that I could get that feeling that I needed, that recognition, that that promotion, that money, and that was going to fix everything. And for some reason, it wasn't fixing it. And so I was like, this isn't working. And so but I'm not a quick learner. So I kept doing it. I know. I was like, this sucks and this isn't working, but I'm going to try harder. Maybe I'm not trying hard enough. Maybe I'm not showing up enough. Maybe I'm not sacrificing enough. And
Right.
so I really had to be fired. And I tell the story that I told at the NNBA. I was driving home from being fired and I was like, God, what am I supposed to do now? There's nothing left for me. This is it. This was the most catastrophic thing that has ever happened in my life. And I know that sounds so stupid to say getting fired was the worst thing that's ever happened to me, but that is how I define myself as worthy, as a worthwhile person was my job. Like, what I was doing to help people and how I was making an impact in healthcare. It was everything about me. So getting fired was like the ultimate, like, just being like spit on, just thrown in the trash for me. And he answered and I said, what am I going to do? And he said, listen to Jed, which was my husband, is my husband. And it's the worst possible answer I ever could have gotten, was to have to listen to my husband, because he was basically saying, be patient. There's something else coming for you and we just need to wait. And I'm like, well, I need to get another job. We're going to die. We're going to starve. We're going to be homeless. This is devastation. And so within 30 days, I did go without income for like 45 days. But within 30 days, I had my first contract as a consultant. And at the end of that contract, I was at $188,000 for that year. And that was from March to December.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. And I was like, you know what? This is going to work. This is going to work out. And I finally started showing up in the way that I always wanted to. I started putting stuff out there. No, we're not going to bark while we're on live, Sonny. My dog is here protecting me from whatever could be out there. Oh, a man is outside. Just warning. If you hear her, she's afraid of everything. So, I really started showing up and I started seeing finally, like, maybe I can do this and maybe this is better for me. And I was at home in my leggings doing chart audits instead of being in an hour traffic each way and being talked down to and manipulated and told what to do in ways that were like, I'm like, why are we doing this? This is so stupid. I'm literally supposed to be in charge of this place. And you just told me I can't be 1 minute late. I haven't been micromanaged since I was a CNA. Yeah. She was like, 801's not going to work. And I'm like, then you don't know how I roll. Okay.
Oh my, you are just dropping like truth, like everybody that's listening right now, right? There are some great organizations out there. Don't get me
for
wrong.
sure.
However, I totally relate to this. And I know many others relate to this because it's so funny how as you get up in nursing to higher leadership positions, it seems like you lose more autonomy the higher you get, which is really weird. This is from my experience, what I've experienced. At the director level, in the C-suite, and I'm somebody who does not shy away from talking and advocating, and it's happened to me. Like, I got laid off multiple times, and it's crazy because we have all these advanced degrees. We have all these certifications, all this knowledge and expertise. So on the resume, they love it. They love it. They're like, yeah, this is great. But then when you get there, they don't want to listen to what you have to say. They're all about give us the idea, but they don't really want to implement it, right?
100%.
So I'm not saying everywhere, but be cautious in some of these leadership positions. So this is why I so appreciate your transparency, because it happened to me too at the director level the first time I ever got laid off. And I was like, what just happened here? In the midst of like a minute. And, I told the story, but at the NNBA, like literally my daughter had just came out of the hospital. She had a complex seizure. We were in the hospital for a week, went back to work. And then like 2 weeks later or something, they let me go. So I had already started my nurse career coaching business at that time. But, for many people out there that are listening, it's difficult to make that transition when you're still working as an employee and trying to launch your side hustle. But trust me, it's possible. You can do it. And, what are some tips as we're talking about that transition, for nurses who are interested in nurse consulting? What are some early tips that you can give them?
They could not be more simple. Just recognizing the expertise that you bring to the table that isn't on your resume. I see all these nurse resume builders. That's amazing, super amazing service. I'm not downing that service, but I
Right.
think sometimes as nurses, we want to be recognized. We just want recognition. And we're like, okay, my resume is not good enough and this is going to get me in a job. But the things that you've actually done to change healthcare and to change your organization never make it to your resume. So one little tiny hospital I worked at in the middle of the ocean hadn't been fully staffed in as long as anyone there could remember. They're like, we always have travelers. We're full-time travelers because we're in the middle of nowhere. We could never get fully staffed. So I fully staffed them in 6 months of being there, saved them almost $1 million. And guess how many extra dollars I made for that? Guess how much extra they paid me for fixing their
Zero.
staffing? $0. None. Yeah, they didn't even care. They didn't even say like, good job, Nena. Thanks for doing this. So what I did was I gave the Filipino nurses that were on island extra time to orient. That's all they wanted. They were new. They had been nurses in the Philippines and they just needed extra attention and extra hands-on. They're super
Right.
competent nurses.
Like
And the hardest
transition.
work, exactly. They needed a longer transition time because they had just taken their boards in the US, right? So they
Right.
had all these fears. So we fully staffed this hospital, saved $660,000 in 6 months. No one cared. Didn't make any extra money from that. And here am I trying to get recognition and trying to get money and trying to get a hand clap. And I'm like, this is showing up in the wrong way, right? I'm showing up in the wrong way right now. You have to show up for people that care. And that's the kind of stuff that you don't put on your resume. That
Right.
you don't, you're like, I was the director of a rural critical access hospital from 2017 to 2019, and that's what makes it to your resume. And I managed the ER and the long-term care and the radiology department.
But this is what you need to do. You need to put that on your resume. Like,
Exactly.
you need to come out. And this is why
Exactly.
when I do talk to nurses for nurse career coaching and that, even if
Yes.
you're new nurses or not new nurses,
Yes.
what we focus mostly on is not even the resume and cover letter, but it's
Exactly.
for them to articulate what they're doing and articulate their worth because they're so like, I don't want to sound like I'm showing off. I'm like, you're not showing,
Exactly.
you are stating facts. Like,
Right.
this is
Here's
what
what
you
I've done. Here's what I bring to the table. And that translates from employment to self-employment. It's
yeah.
good for both. Like I
Mm,
said, it's not about, that it's not important to not have a good resume. It's that we're putting things on there that are like no one cares about, right? Like
right.
didn't change it. It does anybody, any nurse can work in long-term care for 15 years. There's nothing special about that,
Right.
right? There's nothing different about that. If you work in long-term care for 15 years, great, so did I, right? That doesn't make us special.
Right.
What
What's your
makes us
value
special? Exactly.
position? Like, what's
Exactly.
different? And this is how I think the mindset of when nurses do want to transition to business, some of them do have a lot of difficulty acquiring clients, whether it's a service-based business or whatever it is, because of their inability to show up really to be visible and tell
Yeah.
people about the business
Yeah.
and just simply articulate and even just make the ask for the money.
Yes. Well, I think we perceive that as selling, and then we get to this next conclusion that we're not good at selling as nurses. And I'm not a sales nurse. I don't have a sales background. I'm just a long-term care nurse. I started as a CNA. I have no special training. So it's like what you need to do is show up with the value and offer to serve. And there's a couple leading nurse entrepreneurs that, including the NNBA, that really focus on service. We're not selling. We're not out here. When we talk about visibility, or when I talk about visibility, when you talk about visibility, we're not saying you need to be out there selling yourself 24 hours a day. Gross, right?
Mhm,
Gross.
mhm.
The whole purpose, the whole focus is if we want healthcare to be different, we have to show up in a different way. So we're showing up as servants. We're showing up with a heart to serve healthcare, to serve fellow nurses, to serve patients, to serve organizations in a way that reflects the value we bring to the table. So when I'm in a conversation, the only really way I market is number one, providing education. I partner with other agencies. I have a hospice EMR partner, Fire Note, and I show up and do CE education for them every month. So it's like
Nice.
when we show up and serve, it attracts people to us. And then when we talk to them, instead of saying, I offer A, B, C, I never say that. I never say, hello, my name is Nena, and I'm a hospice compliance consultant from Hart Healthcare Solutions, and I will offer you this, this, or this. Which one would you like?
Right.
I listen, I have the conversation, I listen, and I say, you know what, I'd like to share a little of my story with you, which is that I actually was over 30 hospice locations, and I helped them with accreditation, and I helped them with survey, and I helped them with compliance. And it sounds like that's a real problem for you. And I think I could help with that. And they're like, that'd be great. Let's do it. Send me the contract.
Exactly.
That's
And
it.
that's,
That's
and
it.
that's what it is. As nurses, we're very solution focused. Like
Yeah.
we solve problems all day, every day. And that's why I think that if nurses just understand, right, like business, from what I've learned over the years anyway, is like you mentioned, being of service, providing value, and just solving problems. The bigger problems that these organizations have, or whoever has, that you have solutions to, the quicker the I guess sale happens, right? But it's really just a conversation.
Exactly.
You're not like selling a car or something, right? Like it's just having these conversations and building these relationships, right? These trusting relationships. So let's say there's a nurse out there that's working full time and is like, this consulting thing sounds great, but like, where the heck do I get started?
Yeah.
Like, do I need a website? Do
No.
I need a logo? Do I
No.
need so like step 1 to 2, like what's the first step?
So I would reverse engineer this from the way I did it. I don't recommend getting fired to start your business, right? That's not the recommended path, but hey, whatever works, because that's what it took. I would
Right.
say it's so, again, I'm going to oversimplify this because this is how real it is. Start having conversations with people. That's it. You can make a LinkedIn. That's free. Make a LinkedIn account and start putting things on there that interest you, whether that be external links to articles that you find interesting that relate to what you would want to do. Again, we're not selling here. You have nothing to sell. You haven't even started. You're not promoting yourself. You're not selling anything. You have nothing to sell. You're showing up and you're providing value in the way that you see it, in the way that you uniquely can provide value. And
Mhm.
then talking about it. You hit the nail on the head with that. You're literally just building relationships. And when the time is right, I've had clients this year who I started talking to 2 years ago.
Mhm.
Not all clients are ready right now, but not now doesn't mean no.
Right.
So when you start having these conversations about what you've done, people will be like, hey, I actually could use help with that. And you're like, well, great, I'd love to help you. And then I think just preparing your mindset. I know this is super, super underrated,
Yeah.
and it is the biggest part of the business piece for nurses that I see. It's 90% mindset and 10% strategy. And like I like had this revelation this morning in my quiet time that like God is my business strategy. I literally wrote it on a card like I have no other strategy. God is my business strategy. There's nothing else I can do to make my business better. That's it. That's all there is.
Yeah, yeah, they're like,
Like
yeah, prayer is part of the business plan, like, that's
yeah,
it,
yeah.
It's so true though, because, um, and I think whether you believe in God or you have faith or not, what it boils down to is having the audacity to believe. Like I just did
Yes.
recently a thing on Sigma, and they named it audacity to believe because that's truly what it is,
I like
right?
that.
Whether you have faith in God or not, you have to have a deep belief in yourself and the abilities, and that you have to switch and reframe your thinking to be like, I'm here to serve and I'm doing them a favor by helping them out with whatever issue that's happening.
I love that you said that because I was talking to one of my private clients this week and she's like, I still have these money mindset barriers around charging this much. And I said, what do you mean charging this much? And she's like, no one's going to be able to pay $3,000 a month for this service for 10 hours a month. No
Who said,
one's going to
who
pay,
told you
no
that?
one's going to pay that. One of my clients. And I said, can I ask a question? I said, do you mind sharing how much you make in this role that you're in, that you're going to do as a consultant? Like, do you care to tell me your salary? And she said, well, I make 130, make 130 a year. And she is a regional executive for a hospice and home care. And I said, so if we added like 25 to 35% on top of your salary for your benefits and your employment, them managing your employment, we're well over 150K now, right? So we crunched the numbers on how much it is. She can do this service. She knows she can do this service in 10 hours a month, that she is currently doing 40 hours a week for her employer as an employee, right? So she already knows that she can do the same thing for them that she does it as an employee in 10 hours a month. And honestly, that's the biggest takeaway I have, is that the job I do, an employee cannot do. If an employee could do it, it would be done and there wouldn't be a need for it. There'd be no need at all, right? No
Mhm.
employee can do this for a company because they're doing their other day-to-day 40-hour waste of time job, right? There has to, or they're doing the really important things like patient care, right? You can't do patient care and fix the big problems in healthcare because you're
Right,
focused on your patients, and that's great. That's not a bad thing, but
right.
you can't do everything. So $13,000 a month is what her company, 13 to 15,000 is what her company pays to employ her a month. And she's asking for 3,000 a month to do the same thing, a fifth. She's asking for a fifth of what it costs to employ her to do the same service at a higher level, at a level that is someone on the outside looking in that gives a higher quality because they have no conflict of interest and no buy-in to say the right things or else they get fired. So the outcome is higher. The quality is higher.
Right. This is what it is. This is what drives me nuts. And I it took me I had the same issue with pricing in the beginning too. And it's so funny. It brings me to this thing where, like, I post quotes all the time, but it's like, you would rather, right? Like, work until you're literally ill. Like, nurses get sick from
Yeah.
working
Yeah.
on someone else's dream and building somebody else's wealth. But for you to, like, advocate for yourself and ask for yourself, you're like, oh, I don't know. But this is the reframe that I want to give people out there. Do it for your family. Do it for the people that, if you have children or whoever the motivation is, right? Because it's truly for your health. Like, honestly, a lot of nurses are working, like, I used to work 12-hour shifts, sometimes 16. And it's just crazy that you can have a business, depending on what it is, work less and make more. And there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with that. But I think society has put into us, especially, I'm a first gen immigrant, and, upbringings, a lot of it has to do with the way you're raised with money, right? Like, I used to, like, in my family, it's like we didn't talk about it too much. Like, don't talk about money. It's not right. And it's like I mean, not health literacy, but money literacy, and having these conversations. Sometimes society looks at money as like a bad thing. And in nursing, we're used to taking care of people for health. So, like, oh my goodness, like, I don't want to ask for more money. I should just be grateful I have a job. But it's like, no, no, we're providing the freaking greatest service. We're saving people's lives and putting our own lives at risk. So, like, why not charge more for whatever it is you're doing, whatever consulting? So this is why, like, I'm like, nurses making money moves.
Yes. I was just about to plug that book. Yes.
I'm all about
You got to
nurses,
get it.
like, charge more.
Yes, yes. And I think that's a big mindset shift too, is going away from that employment mentality of I only deserve this much an hour. It's not about hours, it's about impact. So it's like,
Value based price.
what is the outcome of what they're going to get? Well, they're going to have a compliance expert on call anytime they need me, right? So that's not a $50 an hour. That's not a $100 an hour. That's a highly specialized service, right? That I'm
Okay.
making myself available immediately for when they urgently need help, right? And then when you build your package and you build your services, or I call it an offer ladder or a offer suite, you build out the value into that that's not based on the hours, it's based on what they get. So you add these um, pieces and components of your package that increase the value so that your client knows what they're getting for that money. They're not getting 10 hours of nothing, right? I can give a retainer for 10 hours and you get nothing from that. I can
Let
do
me,
40 hours a week and you get nothing from that.
you know who blew my mind explaining value-based pricing was Rachel Rogers, right? She's a millionaire and she was a lawyer. She was making barely anything and then transitioned into her own business. So in her book, where she writes about like we should all be millionaires, something to that effect, she talked about her services and how when you become more of an expert, right, in the area of your field or your zone of genius, like I could help somebody with a resume literally in like 20 minutes or I don't know, 15 minutes, right?
Yeah.
But
Yep.
maybe before I used to do 2 hours, let's say. Does that mean I should get paid less per hour? Right? Because the better you get, the faster you get. So you're actually losing money if you're charging hourly. Do you know what
Yeah.
I'm saying? So
Yes.
that blew my mind. I was like, she is so right. Like
Well,
value-based pricing.
I do think, I think this is something that we learn over time. It just updated my name. Did you see that? I just changed my name. That's okay. It's great. But yes, avoid hourly rates in your package. But I also think when you're first starting out, you need to just give yourself some grace and
Yeah.
not worry about like doing it wrong, because I think that holds people back, is that I'm going to mess up. You will definitely mess up and that's okay. And if you don't mess up, then you're not trying. You're not putting yourself out there. So one thing I learned is that for like reoccurring packages, I don't do hourly, but for long-term things, I will. So I've talked to a couple of different people and a couple of different things that I do. And one of the things is that contract that I had for the first part of the year, in or the last part of the year in 2021, that ended up being almost 200,000. If he had asked me as a brand new consultant, "Hey, what do you charge for this service?" I would have said, "I'll do this for 20K." Okay, 10% of what I made. I said, "I'll do this for the year for 20K," because I had no idea what to price my services, and I was just showing up and saying yes because I was desperate and because I needed this, right?
Hmm.
So he said, "How about this? How about I top your current CEO pay and I'll pay you 150 an hour? Could you do that? Because that's how I would like to structure this right now and see where it goes." And I just said, "Yes, I can do that." That was my first contract ever, right?
Hmm.
So I had unlimited hours, and again, I don't advocate for out packaging hourly because of the fact that you underprice yourself. But when you don't know what to price and you have a client that's willing to pay you something that meets your return, this
Yeah.
met my return, right? 150 an hour met the return on the time I put in for this. And I was just doing chart audits, right? And I was at my own schedule at my house remotely. So it
Yeah.
just depends. It depends a lot on the work. It depends a lot on the client. It depends a lot on the service. And I would just say, give yourself some grace and just don't say no. If you're, I think what I see is like a lot of saying no because it's like scary. Like, no, I can't do that. I know I can't do that. It's like, well, let's try it. Let's try and see if it let's try it for 3 months. Let's try it for 1 month. Let's try it for 1 week. Whatever you need to do to structure it in a way that you can see if it's gonna work for you.
Yeah.
Don't be afraid to go back and have the conversation, right? Like, go back and have the conversation and say, "I really wanna do this for you, and I really enjoy working with you. This just isn't this setup isn't working." what's your budget for this service? Because I'm spending a lot more time on it than I had planned, or I need to move to a monthly recurring model because this structure isn't working for me with my other clients, or whatever you honestly want to show up and say. Having that conversation with your clients and treating them like a person has been the best thing that I've done. And it's hard. It's really hard for me because I'm a people pleaser and I don't want to upset them, and I don't want them to be like, well, we don't want to work with you anymore because you said this, right? I'm like afraid they're going to reject me. I've never had that happen. So I think they just want to be treated like, you would want to be treated and told the truth. So that's something that has worked really well for me.
Yeah, and I think you touched upon so many great things, like just literally have a conversation, because um it's a mutual benefit, right? Like you have something they want, you can help them, and you just come to an agreement. And it may not be the best, like you said in the beginning. However, it's a starting point, right? Where you're going to learn, get better. And then if they see the value you bring, you may not even ask, and they'd be like, oh my goodness, this is outstanding. I think like, let's, give you more next year, or whatever the heck the case is. But really, I think having, you know, number one, investing in yourself is extremely important. So for me, I've invested in multiple coaches, business experts and things like that, gone to conferences like the NNBA, the National Nurses in Business, meet with other entrepreneurs, other people doing the same thing in your area of like consulting. Like, so let's say you're interested in consulting, you could definitely reach out to Nena. She could walk you through the stuff, or meet somebody else at the NNBA, which is, shout out to NNBA. It's going to be in July in Las Vegas.
17th through 19th at the South Point. Cannot wait. I'm so excited.
I'm excited because I missed it last year.
I know, I missed you.
Yes, and I can't wait to go. So like, let's talk about that quickly for a few
Okay.
minutes if you have time. Like,
Yeah, absolutely.
like
Yes.
how did this whole thing go down?
So I was in Vegas in January of this year on a contract. I was opening a hospice location there and doing leadership training,
Mhm.
and just happened to connect with Michelle, the president who just retired, and she invited me to dinner. She said, "Are you doing anything while you're here?" And I'm like, "No, just working and working and working and working." Right. So I thought it sounded really great to go just have dinner. Yay, Michelle's coming to NMBA. Awesome, Michelle. I will see you there. So we never talked about her retiring. We never talked about anything. We just talked about what I wanted to do. And of course, I'm such a spaz. She's like, "What do you want to do, Nina?" And I was like, "I don't know." She's like, "What are you doing? What is your vision?" I'm like, "I don't know. I'm just trying to keep my head above water." With some stupid answer, the worst possible, least impressive answer ever. But I wrapped it up with saying, like, I'm trying to figure out my reach and my impact and what I'm supposed to do to like show up in a way that like really reaches people and really helps nurses understand what they can do. And I'm just feeling like I don't have the capacity to do this myself. And I'm asking for more. I'm asking God for more, and I'm asking for something bigger. And that was it. We just had a nice dinner, and then just over time, that kind of evolved into asking if we were interested in taking over the NNBA when they retired, and the answer was a resounding yes. And so I knew right away that we were supposed to do it. My husband Jed knew right away we were supposed to do it, and so it was definitely a God thing the way that it happened. But I'm so grateful for Michelle and her husband Lou and just what they've done with the NNBA. And
Yes.
my vision is just to continue that mission of making sure nurses know they can do anything they want. I mean, it's really what it is.
I mean, oh my goodness. Like I'm just so happy for you. And the NMBA, even though I didn't even know about it before, like it's been around since the mid 80s, right?
Yeah, 1985. Yeah.
And when I don't even know how I got introduced to it. I can't remember. I have to think back. But when I first met Michelle, because I booked like a call with her, she was so nice, so humble and down to earth. And I'll never forget, like, she was like, she thinks she told me something like, Farah, you have so much potential. Like she's just, like I can't even describe her. And I was like, oh my God, that means so much. Like she's really genuine in like how she really like empowers and inspires people. So,
Yeah.
it's great that you're gonna be taking over and like making this impact, because I have the same passion for helping other nurses realize, not just in their careers, all the different opportunities, but also in business, right? Like I think since COVID, we've seen a lot of nurses go into entrepreneurship, and
Yeah.
it's not something that really we're taught in nursing school, right? So,
Not at
I'm just
all.
excited about, the future of the NNBA. So if you want to quickly, I know we're kind of coming up on time, but if you have a few minutes, like quickly
Yeah.
tell them about NNBA. And honestly, y'all, like nobody's paying me to say this, even though I do have an affiliate link. I mean, it gets me a
Woo!
coffee. But when anybody joins, so I'll share my affiliate link.
Yeah, please do.
The NMBA has been one of the best conferences that I've ever been to. Like it's
Me
fire.
too.
Like when I walked into the room, I was like, these are my people. Like this is
Yes.
like, yeah, it's just such amazing energy. Yeah.
So, the NNBA, like I said, like you touched on, has been around since 1985 with this recognition that nurses have career alternatives outside of the bedside. There's no like discouragement from patient care at all. That's not the heart or the attitude or the culture. It promotes improving patient care through career alternatives. So
Mhm.
it's not about saying nurses don't need to be at the bedside. Nobody thinks that, right? This is about knowing that you are made for something different and knowing that you have ideas and innovations that you maybe don't have the realization of how to do, right? And you might need help. So it
Mhm.
builds that community of nurses around you who are doing the same thing. My favorite thing about the NNBA, I've been a member for the last 5 years. My first call with Michelle was in April of 2019, my discovery call,
Yeah.
and I was trying to figure out this whole consulting thing and how this looked. I had
Yeah.
just found out that consulting wasn't employment, that you could consult for yourself. I didn't even know that was a thing. I thought you had to be an employee to be a consultant.
Mhm.
So, this realization that there's more out there for nurses who know they're being called to more. And I think a lot of the nurses that got chewed up and spit out during COVID are coming to the realization that healthcare isn't what they hoped it would be, isn't what they thought it would be. And some brand new nurses feel that way. My sister Casey, who's the new member engagement manager for the NNBA, she's been with me for the last 3 years. She's been at my vendor table. Most people that stopped by my table talk to her because she is a people person. She does all the peopling. She arranges all the peopling. I can't. I don't have the capacity for that. She does. She's energized by people and listening to their story.
Yes.
She knew she was done with nursing as soon as she got out of nursing school. Her very first job, she was like, I'm a brand new nurse. I just graduated and this isn't for me.
And
She's
that's
like,
okay.
so now what? Right?
You take those skills that you learn and you just reapply them in a different way, which is,
Exactly.
still valuable, but you just learn sometimes it's just not,
Yeah.
not what it is. But that's awesome.
So we're going to be having our 40th anniversary conference this year in Vegas, July 17th through 19th. So make sure you click Farah's link so she gets credit for you. And I'm really excited about the things that I'm hearing feedback on. I've gotten to talk to so many members, just a flood of like gratitude for the conversations that I've had. They have such great ideas for the NNBA, for growth and for engagement of the members. And I
Mhm,
think what I've kind of come to is like my heart is to just support and promote the hell out of the NNBA members. Like just come to a new level of partnership with our members and their businesses that makes this a no-brainer for them to be a part of. I know when I'm seeking a membership, I'm looking for how, selfishly, I can benefit from that. I'm going to network. I'm going to get myself out there. I'm going to promote my business. I'm going to learn how to improve my business. I'm going to maximize those benefits. And so that's something, and I know that Michelle wanted that too. We've had lots of conversations about how to continue her vision, how to grow her vision, because really her vision for the NNBA is that all nurses know that they have the option to work for themselves and be completely independent.
mhm.
And so just providing the support and the education and the resources on how to do that. So I would love to talk to any nurses who are interested or have questions. Can message me on Facebook, can email me, Nena at nursebusiness.com.
Mhm.
Um, but nursesbusiness.com. Sorry. But I would love to, I would really love to just share and talk about that and explain how we could support nurses and take feedback, you know.
Yeah.
That's something that I'm not changing things in the NNBA right now. I just took over. So I'm looking to engage in a level where I'm learning. I'm in a learning phase, right? So
Right.
I'm not in a we're going to change everything and make this totally different. No, no, no. I'm at a point where I want to learn and hear what the needs are and how to meet those.
Awesome. Well, I'm just so excited, and I always promote the NNBA because I just think it's such a
I
great
appreciate that.
organization.
Yeah.
And like some people don't even know about it. Like when I found out, I was like, what? There's like an organization for like nurses in business. This is great. So amazing things. And any last tips, I guess you can say to those out there, when I started my business, I was in my doctoral program, working full time, two kids under 5, and trying to like do it all. So like what are some words of advice for those aspiring entrepreneurs or early beginners?
I think you touched on it earlier, what my biggest piece of advice would be, and that is that nurses are very task and process oriented, and business doesn't work that way.
Hmm.
You are literally building relationships and you're literally just sharing your passion. And if you don't post on social media 3 times a week and you don't publish a blog post and you don't have a get your website built and you don't, you know, have all these things that it looks like you're supposed to have, that doesn't mean your business is not going to be successful. I know plenty of nurse consultants who are highly successful who don't care about any of that. They hate social media, they don't have a website, right? And they're still making money and they're still growing. And I think it's being open and really leaning into those areas of discomfort. My mindset coach, she said that the reason that things are uncomfortable is because we back away from it, right? When something's uncomfortable, we start to back away. We're like, ooh, this doesn't feel good. But it's really about leaning in and getting to know those uncomfortable things and getting really intimate with the discomfort. Why am I uncomfortable with this? Is it because I'm afraid that I'm going to fail? Is it because I'm afraid I'm going to succeed? I had this weird cycle where I think I was equally afraid of failure and success. What if I fail and we go bankrupt, or what if I make $1 million? Like, it's both equally scary to me, and like working through those things are how you get past them, right? We have to be able to like get close to that and work through it in order to build a business that works for us. So it's not going to look like anybody else's.
Yeah, and that's the biggest thing. I think your path to business or entrepreneurship or starting a side hustle, it's not going to look the same for everybody. And don't compare yourself to others. It sounds cliche, whatever. But honestly, don't be afraid to reach out to people. People
Yeah.
will, even if it's like a 10-minute phone call, they may give you some gems that you could work with. But just know that you don't have to do it alone, right? There's like the Small Business Administration that has so many resources, obviously the NBA, the
Yeah.
NNBA.
Absolutely.
You can invest in coaching, and other business programs or whatever it is. You don't have to do it alone. Like I just found out, like I know I'm not an operations type person. Like I don't like all the nitty gritty things. Um, and like even tracking data or tracking how much you're making, like those are all important things. It'll come with time. But honestly, the biggest thing is just deciding and starting and saying, hey, I want to be a consultant. Let me just register my business. You could go to Google, you could go to freaking YouTube University, and it'll help you.
Yes. And I think, like you said, we worry, we get caught up in the details and they keep us from moving. You don't need all these expensive things to start a business, and you don't need to worry about all that stuff. Now, when you start having somebody pay you, so you're making money, when you hit 6 figures, you definitely need,
Mhm.
an accountant. You definitely need to look at your tax options. You definitely need to look at insurance and protecting yourself and your business. But I think we just get so caught up in all of these, gotta do it, gotta have it. And it's like, No, no CEO does their own books. No CEO does their own social media. No CEO, you're not going to have to do it all. Don't worry about any of that, right? Like worry about building the relationships that are going to bring in the revenue. Revenue building activities are all you should be worried about. If you're, especially if you're doing a side hustle, if it's not making you money, stop doing it, right? And I have found that like a lot of the stuff that I was doing, even content creation wise, wasn't making me money. But conversations with people, real conversations, and just listening with no agenda, no selling, I'm just listening
Mhm.
is what makes me the most money, because they usually tell me a need and I tell them how I think I could help, whether that's me or I connect them to somebody else. I would say at least half of the conversations I have with people, I'm referring them to someone else who does something different than I don't do. Hey, you know who would be great at this? My friend who manages social media accounts, because I don't, right? Here,
Right.
I'm going to connect you by email. And I just helped them for nothing. And I helped my friend, right? So that's
Yeah.
the kind of things that you should spend your time on instead of worrying about posting schedules and CPAs and bookkeepers. If you're not already making six figures, that stuff will come when you start making money and you can pay for it. And then you won't be stressed about how much it costs.
Yeah. And I wanted to just touch upon this. I met with her name is Pritma yesterday. She's the co-founder of Lavender, one of the largest telehealth
Wow.
services in the United States, and she happens to be Canadian as well. Shout out to Canada. But yeah, she just literally said like they started with an email and just her calling people.
Yeah.
That's it. That's how they start. And they decided, and they did it in 45 days from
Wow.
idea to implementation. 45 days.
There it is.
I was like, she is a beast. Like, but the thing is, you're right. It's just picking up the phone, calling, getting on, having these conversations and networking. Networking.
Yes. Yeah.
I wish I would have done this earlier, but this is what the NNBA does, right?
Yes.
Because it
Yeah.
propels you forward when you're around like-minded people and that inspire you and everything. So, oh my goodness, such a good talk. I could talk to you for
Thank you so much.
but yes, I'll put in the links below, like
Okay.
all your information.
Awesome.
And then people can connect with you on
Yeah.
LinkedIn.
Yeah, on LinkedIn, Nina Hart, and NBA National Nurses in Business page, and same on Facebook, Nina Hart, National Nurses in Business.
Awesome. And then
Yeah.
you guys, I'll put my affiliate link. Come to the
Yes,
NMBA. We're gonna have so much fun.
we are. We are
And
gonna have fun.
it's such a pleasure. And please subscribe to the Nursing Dose on Spotify and on YouTube. Thank you so much, Nena.
Thank you
Don't
for having me.
yes, don't run